jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Good morning, YouTube, YTPC. Speaking to you from the Shed of Shangri-La. We survived a move down here to the Kanton of Wallis, not far from the town of Brig, halfway up the mountain in this little village. Actually, it's not even a village, it's a hamlet, just a few houses here. And this shed is actually the other renovation project that we had, which we completed this year. Very happy to have got it done before winter. So I'm just going to do a little bit of footage here about the Shed of Shangri-La. That's the inside. We've got all this stuff. There's my eggnog. There's my fridge. There's my pipe. There's my little fire. Wonderful. And all the stuff we store in here. And then on the outside, we've seen a few clips of this before. This is this mysterious writing which someone put there 150 years ago at least on the original wood, and we tried to keep as much of that as we could. These are the steps that I just got all the snow off, and the paths. See, we've had quite a bit. My wife put this decoration here. This looks like a Patronus from Harry Potter, doesn't it, really? But in the night it's beautiful on the snow. Oh look, we've got a little cat. His name is Nero. He belongs to one of the neighbours. Got a little dear old cat, so I usually give him a little bit of some crackers or some meat. So they're getting fed like 10 times a day by various neighbours. Sun is coming up there brightly. See, a fair amount of snow still on the roofs. But it took me quite a time this morning to clear the paths and salt them, as you see there. Got a bunch of wood. Well, that's just a tiny bit. We cut and cut and cut, put a few decorations outside. And the main storage of the wood is around the back. You just see it there on the left of the chalet, of the Shed of Shangri-La, sorry. This is what makes you feel comfortable with winter. A bunch of wood. So that should do us until the springtime up here. It took a long time to cut. My brother-in-law, two of them in fact, helped me do that. And there's a little view into the mountains, just to remind you how that is. So where I'm sitting now used to be just sawdust on the floor, a place where we would throw wood, very grubby, very dirty, not really good for storing things because they got so filthy here, full of giant spiders. And the window, in fact, up there was open, and but it had a good roof and the foundation was okay, and some of the wood was good. So we got 2 or 3 craftsmen who knew how to rescue things, not just tear it all down and start again. And they love to renovate things here to preserve the history and the cultural contribution. So that's what we did. And we got it a little bit insulated. Got even some Christmas lights in, can you believe? And panelled it and got some shelves and got a fridge here with the wine and stuff, so, and electricity, most important thing. And this camera is sitting on my little heater, very similar to the one in the Shed of Serenity in our other home. One of those ones that glows nicely and blows out warm air. This has got 4 little feet and sits on the concrete floor. That's the other thing we got done. And I just shoveled all the snow away from the path around the house and to the chalet, and salted it. Right now we've got blue sky. It's usually about -3, 4 or 5 at night, and maybe 5 or 6 or 7 in the day. But I think about 5 days from now we will have all that snow that you are getting on the east coast of the US, because that's how it often works. It's if you get a white out there and a massive load of snow, that the earth turns and the jet stream sort of drifts those weather patterns over to first Britain and then the continent, and usually takes, let's say, 5 or 6 days. So we might be having snow on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Let's see, a white Christmas. I don't count it as a white Christmas unless I see big fat snowflakes. The snowflakes that are so big you can hear them when they hit the surface. The snowflakes that are so big they electrostatically link together in little chains and rings, and they dance their way down. I've seen that here in Switzerland very few times, just 2 or 3 times, but I've seen it, and it's the most beautiful thing to behold. And the first Christmas Eve that I was here, 1987, I saw that. We had a white Christmas on Christmas Eve, and it was the most magical experience, it really was. I am smoking, of course, Christmas cheer. I just can't get away from this now. This beautiful flake in a Fed Head Ed pipe, this lovely red one, which is very festive and nice for Christmas, which is a Grabo, of course, 6mm, perfect condition. What would you say? I'd say that's a Zulu, or that's a quarter bent Dublin. I'm not sure which one it is. More Zulu, I think, isn't it? Got my little Christmas lighter here. You see, this is a Zor lighter, which is less expensive than a Zippo, and this one was hand painted. Look at that lovely scene there, the deer, rabbits and Santa. I got that a couple of years ago. Keep it down here just for Christmas. This is so... Everyone says, is it worth it? Is it worth the hype? Yeah, it is. I mean, I tell you, Christmas cheer is the example. So others have tried to get near to it, like the Kringle Flake was an attempt to do what they do. Now this is 22 years old, so it's a special case. Didn't actually get that higher rating this particular year on tobacco reviews. Some said most other years were better than this, but 22 years has probably helped it enormously, and it's now so rich and fruity and sweet. You think, how do you make an aromatic out of just pure Virginia? A little bit of vinegar breaks down the cellulose and catalyzes that to go into sugars, doesn't it? So It's one of the various ways that you can break down cellulose into saccharides and sweet things, you know. But it's great because it means in winter I didn't really have a place to go apart from the cellar under the house, which is was all right, you know. You saw one or two videos of me in that 400-year-old cellar. Actually, this shed was probably a couple of 100 years old. The original wood was inscribed, and I think I showed you some of that in one of my videos. And we found things in here which were probably at least 150 years old, if not older, when they cleared it out. You know, you always find an old coin, don't you? And parts of old tools, which some of the craftsmen or the hand workers, the woodworkers, recognized these things and said that these are very old things, you know. So we put them to the side in case anyone would ever want to put it in a museum. They probably won't. But even though it's modernized inside, the outside we kept the look, which you have to do here. That's the regulations. And it's just come out dandy. But there's all those things you have to do, aren't there? All those things you have to do when you prepare for Christmas, you know, which got a Christmas presents under the tree, something for my wife, something for her. We know what they are, but that's how we do it now, to make sure that we really get something that we really want. Guess what my Christmas present is? A pipe, of course, isn't it? Although I've been very generous to myself this year, I must, next year I won't be acquiring too much in the way of pipes and tobaccos. I've got a reserve for a very long time. The other day, me and Jean Panzer were about in the town of Brig. He came down, stayed there for a night, and we explored around and looked at the Stockalper Schloss castle, which is really interesting history behind that. I'll leave a link if you ever come to this part. It's something you can look at and walk around. Beautiful gardens. Of course it's all cold and covered with snow, but we sat like two old men. We had actually identical hats like this with the flaps on the side, which is, you know, when you're young you see old blokes wearing these sort of flap hats like that, and you think, I never want to be like that or look like that, and there we are. We sat next to each other smoking our pipes and thought, you know, there's some young kids around must be looking at us thinking, look at those old codgers there. But there we are. It's actually a joy to be an old codger, isn't it? It's a great life. So you can imagine we ate well. For lunch we had a Käseschnitter, which is like cheese on toast, Alpine style, Swiss style. You find it in Germany and Austria. You eat one of these and you almost don't need to eat for another week. I mean, there's so much melted cheese on it, bacon, and put paprika on it. You have a fried egg on top. Somehow we even had some dinner later in the evening, a bit more ordinary steak, but it was very nice. And of course we went to Tabagie, which is the real tobacco shop in this town. Makes his own blends. He's a pipe smoker and he makes brilliant blends, all named after the peaks of the mountains in this area. And one of my favourites is Matterhorn, of course, the famous Swiss mountain there in Zermatt. And I got, what did I get? 500 grams of that, which is like 10 tins worth. Jarred up a couple of hundred already. and it's very, very nice. It's a bit, I'll have to review it probably. Jean did a very nice video of Matterhorn, and have a look at that. That'll give you an idea. It reminds me a bit of Trout Stream, but then again there are some differences. So that was it's a nice tobacco shop. We did ask the guy if we could film, but contrary to most American tobacconists who are very open to that, and it's good advertising and why not, yeah, have a look around, they seem to be in Switzerland very shy of this, and as in Portman we couldn't film, and I did contact the guy well in advance and said, you know, could we do this, we just would like to talk to you a little bit, and he was very shy. He said, no, I prefer not. It's a very small shop, so the actual scanning of what he had and pipes and that wouldn't have been that long, but I always find it interesting if you get to talk to the people about what they see as the trends, you know, how they see the future of tobacco, how they see cigars doing, and what kind of clientele and how that's changing, all of that stuff, you know. I had a pack of tobacco about a couple of weeks ago from Wilke, where I've ordered, as I'm a big fan of Basil Rathbone, the actor, and he was actually a fencing master and taught lots of Hollywood fencers how to adapt, especially to making a good film sword fight. And you remember him with Tyrone Power, for example, or Errol Flynn, and I think he's just a marvellous actor in many, many ways. Well, this is what I actually thought I would get was 515. They must have run out of it, but to be fair, they sent me a note saying we've actually got Rum Cake, and their Rum Cake was their Christmas tobacco of 1993, something like that, and was publicised and advertised as being also a match to what Basil Rathbone smoked back then, sort of 95% the same. Apparently 515 has a floral note to it, which is different, but the reviewers in Tobacco Reviewed of Wilke 515 and Rum Cake is what I've got here. I'll have to change the label, well, I won't bother. It's the one more or less that Basil Rathbone smoked. Got very high reviews, so that's going to be sweet and rummy and actually very nice for Christmas. So check out Wilke Rum Cake or the 515, either one. Read the reviews and see what you think. So I might do a little talk on that one when I open up the jar. The only thing I haven't done with my Christmas cheer here is to dry it, and I quite often leaving the lid open a bit to sort of give it a gradual, you know. I always put these foils, cut circles out and put them inside deliberately so they don't dry out, but in this particular case, amazing, it's 22 years old and it's been perfectly conserved here. I still can feel the wetness and the cool on it, but I'm always cautious of not to over dry it, you know. But I'll have to do that because it's going out a little bit too often and doesn't relight so easy, but that's my mishandling of it. I should dry it out a bit more and then probably leave a bit on a plate and try that then later. The other thing I notice is with flakes sometimes, especially if you've not dried them quite enough, they will sort of explode not really explode, but they just sort of crackle a bit and little bits fly off and then land on your finger and may scorch you a little bit. That's probably, again, pockets of moisture bursting out in steam and propelling hot embers out of it. So another disadvantage of not having dried it properly. Apologies for the sound quality. I forgot my directional mic. I then ordered one for here that I can just leave here and know this order, because there's always one thing you forget when you stand outside your house. You've packed everything in, all your suitcases, you've gone through your lists and you're thinking, I've forgotten something, what is it? And the annoying thing is, I thought to myself, oh yes, the mic, and I went in the house and then got talking about some other things and I forgot it again. Bloody stupid, I'm getting old, you know. You all look after yourselves, prepare for a lot of eating and drinking, that's always good anyway. There'll be all those good films on the telly like A Wonderful Life, which I find always so moving, I can hardly watch it. It's such a brilliant and heart-moving film. If you've never seen it, look at it. Jimmy Stewart, probably his best film. I think he said it was the best role. Just after he finished his military service, he was a very highly decorated officer in the American Air Force. I think he got to colonel, and he did a lot of missions. He was out there at the front and all the rest. He came back, and I think he had a bit of post-traumatic syndrome and was even wondering, should he return to acting? Is it important anymore after everything they've been through? You can understand that, all those veterans out there. And Lionel Barrymore, he played Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, the old mean guy, you know, who tried to ruin George Bailey, which was a character Jimmy Stewart played. But that actor persuaded him and says, Jimmy, look, if you bring happiness and enjoyment and entertainment, isn't that better than anyway what you've been through, having to drop bombs on enemies? Of course, was a necessary thing. Terrible as that sounds, but and he came back and he gave an absolutely colossal performance, I thought. So genuine, so Jimmy Stewart to perfection. Frank Capra was the director. So I'll leave a link, because there's probably a bunch of videos with clips about it. Maybe there's even the full thing here on YouTube. Do have a look for that. It's a Wonderful Life. It's black and white, but it's just timeless and beautiful. And really, I think my favourite, one of my very favourites of Christmas films. Anyway, here I go, I'm rambling on again. Mustn't do that. You all take care, everyone. Look after yourself. Cheers. Bye-bye.